Morning.
How are you?
Good. Well rested after a couple of days off.
There you go. And then we got a holiday week coming up. I guess it's not next week, it's the week
Next
after,
week,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fun,
it's
fun.
the last week in June already. Can you believe it?
No, I can't. We're halfway through the year already. I can't believe it.
Hmm.
But I don't want to waste time because we got a whole lot to go through. Let's start with this FMLS stuff, Mark.
Okay.
So when you log into FMLS, there's a NAR settlement update here. Mark, why don't you take this? Go with it.
Oh, you didn't tell me I was going to have that up in front of me. Hold
Oh,
on.
sorry.
That's okay. Let's see.
Well
Brits,
rehearsed, Mark. Just roll with it.
right?
Yeah.
Of course, now my computer's freezing up while I'm trying to get to that
Ba
text.
basically,
Do you have the language you can
yeah,
read?
yeah,
I'll
it's up
talk
on the
about it.
screen. It's on the
Okay.
screen.
Uh, I don't see that.
FMLS is not a broker-owned MLS, and they are saying that they're not going to follow the NAR settlement per se.
Right.
And on the MLS platform, FMLS will introduce new designated concessions fields, as well as add an option for the listing agent to communicate that a seller may be willing to pay compensation to the buyer's broker. And inviting buyers to include any requested compensation for the buyer's broker and the buyer purchase offer. Here's where I think this is good, and here's where I think this could get us into trouble. Um, Good in the sense that it's pro realtor, pro buyer agency commission. Um, it's working towards being friendly to our way of business that we've been doing business, right? Um, where I don't have clarity, I'm just going to be as transparent as possible here, is because we're one of the brokers that settled the lawsuit.
Right.
In the settlement of that lawsuit, we said we would not disclose buyer agent commission in the MLS.
Right.
So I don't know. Let's say FMLS said, sure, you can put you work with a buyer agent in there. I don't know if we're going to be able to anyway. And
Right.
I'm just being as real and transparent. Like that was where first my brain went to first is, okay, well, I think at this point in time, like 80% of the agents in Atlanta are under some settlement agreement of some kind, whether they're Keller Williams or Coldwell Banker or Compass
Right.
or uh so I don't know where that lands, but can I say that FMLS kind of gave the lawsuit a hand gesture a little bit here? Can I say
It
that?
definitely feels like that. I think FMLS
Yeah.
is glad that they are not realtor owned.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know. I don't even know how to think about this outside of uh kudos to them for paving their own way as they always have. Um and kudos to them for being pro realtor, right? I don't know that it necessarily changes much for us. And if you sit into any presentation by any attorney talking about this NAR settlement, and you listen to the questions everybody's asking in the room, all the questions are, how do I create a loophole? How do I get
Hmm.
around this? And
How do I
and it's
work
kind
around
of,
it?
how do I work around it? Which I get it. By and large, that's what we try to do. It's what's the workaround? What's the work through? Maybe I should say. Um, I think the industries will shake it out. I think we'll be fine. Yeah, FMLS sent out this big thing end of last week, and I think it's worthy of a talking point on our industry update because it's a big part of our world, right?
Yeah, and I mean, kudos to them for finally, taking a stand on it and saying where they're going to land. But it just, like you said, it sort of gives us just more questions to ask to legal counsel to see what we're allowed to do as Keller Williams agents.
and it's not just Keller Williams agents, it's basically the
And
majority of the real estate
NAR, right?
community out there, right?
Like we're double covered.
well, there are
100%.
lots of companies that settled. So any company that settled, like the likely language being similar, is high. So
Right.
It's not
it's a
similar, it's exact.
well,
Yeah.
okay, fine. I didn't
Yeah.
read them individually, but I would assume they're very similar at a minimum. And we're all in this. Like I don't know that, I feel like there's a critical mass that's inside of the FMLS ecosystem that they're going to have to accommodate for. This can't be a fix for 20% of the
Right.
local industry
Yeah.
exclusively.
What y'all need, here's what I think we need to make sure we just say is be aware. That's why we're bringing it up. And two, know we got your back and we will we're on top of it, right? Like
Yeah.
we are always on top of
We
this
will
stuff.
seek clarity.
Seek clarity, seek to understand, yada yada yada. Let's get into numbers. All right. Fulton
Your screen
County.
is not showing, by the way.
Are y'all not seeing my screen?
I can see it.
I can see it.
I think it's just you, Mark.
It's just me. Okay. I
All
always see
right.
it.
Mark, I was wondering why you weren't seeing it before. Anyway, now it
Yeah, I
makes
can't.
sense.
I'm looking at all the different views. I can't see it.
You must have the wrong view on your screen or something. Anyway, all right. Fulton County has 1,086 active inventory. And I hesitate using the word inventory because inventory is actually the relationship between supply and demand. So we have 186 active listings. Now, if I scroll to the left, I want you to look at this 1,086 compared to the numbers previously. It's drastically higher. So it's safe to say that supply is going up at a pretty healthy upward trend. On one side of the coin, that's a really good thing. Like we need the listings to sell real estate, right? Like we need property on the ground, active in the MLS, so you can have those properties to go sell. Because Mark, Rick, I mean, we weren't on this call 2-3 years ago, like begging for listings to sell. We were so short of supply. And it's almost like be careful what you wish for, because now we're getting the supply, but we need the demand to match it. And active under contract in the last 7 days in Fulton County, 114, which is a little bit of a dip, which I was surprised at because of the interest rate factor, which we'll get into here in a little bit. And remember, pendings, closings, most of those houses went under contract 30 days ago, and they went under contract under the interest rate environment of 30 days ago, which was north of 7.25, right? So
Right.
most
One
of those
quick note is that
houses.
there was a federal holiday last week. So that's
True,
probably only
true.
4 days of closings because most attorneys don't close on bank holidays.
Correct, but the closing number was actually pretty healthy at 338 compared to the week before. But you're right, Mark. It may have been people took time off or weren't out going under contract on real estate because of Juneteenth, right? The pending number at 283 is up there. And then the closing number at 338 is pretty healthy for June. And if we just go look at the traditional bell curve, let me get it up here real quick. I don't want to mess up my other screen here. And I'm going to ask your crystal ball prediction here. So where's my monthly sales? Here we go. All right. What was the bell curve? Nope, that's median price. Sorry. Did I miss it? Should have been at the top. Hello, sorry guys. This is what I do when I shoot from the cuff. All right. This was 2021. What was the bell curve of real estate in 2021? Is it started in January and climbed to March. And then in the month of June was the highest month in sales in 2021. And then, but we stayed pretty high through the end of the year. Like, if you remember, that was a pandemic. Coming out of the pandemic, the market was pretty hot. Then you go to 2022, we climbed up in March, and then it was kind of flat from March to June, and June was still the peak month, and then it really tapered off the second half of 2022. And then last year, we went up in March, danced around, and May was actually our peak month. And then there was a consumer confusion around interest rates the second half of last year. They couldn't decide what rates were doing, and it really kind of hurt the third and fourth quarter last year. But 2024, we've been on a constant climb, starting in January on up to May. My suspicion is June's going to be our peak month, but it's not going to be much greater than May was. But the question is, what's the second half of the year bell curve going to look like? I have my crystal ball, but I don't want to throw it out. What's y'all's crystal ball prediction of home sales second half of the year?
I think it's going to look more like the traditional curve, because it's been like a year since there was a drastic shift in rates. So what we're seeing so far this year is the same sort of seasonality that we normally see. So I'm predicting we're going to see the same seasonality in the fall, which means that, by December it'll be low again, and it'll peak back up starting in February.
Yep. Rick, what do you think?
I agree. Unless there's a dramatic shift in interest rates that spawns buyer interest or spurns it or makes it greater, I think we're going to see steady Freddy and the normal bell curve of seasonality play out.
Yeah, I actually think we're going to have a strong July and August. And if interest rates stay at 7 or even come down a little bit, I think we have a potential of a really strong third and fourth quarter. All that to say that there's an election year, but rates have kind of stabilized, in my opinion. And if the rates stay stable and barring no crazy economic change, I think the second half of our year is going to be a pretty healthy second half, not pandemic abundant healthy, but healthy in terms of it's a better second half of 2024 than we experienced in 2023. And my crystal ball to that is, I think the consumer was confused about interest rates the second half of last year. And I think that confusion has gone away, meaning, does the consumer believe interest rates are going to drastically go down at this point in time? No. Does the consumer believe they're going to go up? No. It's a normal right now in the interest rate environment, which makes me think that they're willing to make buying decisions because there's no uncertainty around where it's going. Like that's the good side of stability, right? Like there's not uncertainty.
Well, and the longer rate
supply.
stays.
Huh?
I was just going to say the argument's been supply, like lack of supply over the last couple of years, and supply is starting to creep and climb, and demand stabilize. So that should create a little more opportunity. So your prognostication could play out, well, probably not meteoric high or low, but more consistent. And the steady climb I see, from this year looks consistent. So till you see it start to drop, there's no reason to think it won't be a little bit better and a little bit better. And we'll see where late summer plays out.
100%. And I just want to make one comment on top of that. We're talking about the market. I do believe there's agents that are going to far outperform outperform the market in our world. And it has everything to do with their activities and the activities they're doing from an aggressive nature to go get the business. And you can ride the wave of the market or you can surf the wave of the market is what I like to say. And I think the conversations I've been having and we've been having in team meetings is really in tune with how to go win in this market from an aggressive lead generation strategy. Um, I kind of got off point, but Decatur has 543 active listing supply right now, which is pretty consistent with where they've been. So it's healthy, but it's not drastically higher like Fulton County is compared to the past. Decatur's our steady Eddie, right? Like they're winning big and they're strong. 86 uh said yes to a house in the last 7 days, and 164 pending, which is a little bit down, but middle of the month, right? And then 206 closings is strong. Anytime Decatur's over 200, that's a good number for I'm sorry, DeKalb County. Um, and then Cobb County is at 597. So it's at a probably an all-time high in housing supply right now in
419
Cobb
in there.
County, which is really good as long as demand meets it, right? And then 91 said yes to a house in the last 7 days. I love Cobb being over 100, but I'll take 91 for the moment. And then 203 pending. Their numbers anytime they're over 200, it's a healthy real estate contract world. And then 238 closed in the last 7 days. It sure looks like Cobb is outperforming May. If I look at DeKalb in a closing standpoint, 232, 202, 206 compared to 129, 205, it looks like DeKalb is having a higher June than May. And Fulton, 338, 291, 393 compared to 372, 213, 298. Maybe not as drastic, but it's starting to look like June's going to be a little bit better than May by and large. Are you seeing that in town, Mark?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So that's good news on that front. Uh, CNN popped this article out last week, said mortgage rates fall their lowest level in almost 3 months. The numbers they're quoting is last week the rates were 6.87 averaged, and the week before it was 6.95, where they peaked at 7.22. If I pull the rates today, I'm showing 7.01. So we're right at 7%. And I don't see that changing. I don't think there's a prediction that says, hey, wait, you're going to get a 6.5 4 or 5 months from now. And that's what I'm talking about when I say the consumer is kind of they're not confused by the interest rate environment right now. Like that's pretty much what it is right now.
Yeah, it's no longer the new norm, it's just the norm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sticker shock is worn off.
100%. Um, I thought this was interesting. So if you've watched Million Dollar Listing LA with Josh Altman, he's predicting that Atlanta is a heavy investor market right now. And his reasoning is I think the high end markets of like LA and New York have gotten so high end, people are starting to look at other metro areas. And um, if you just think the film industry, what are the top three cities that produce film, which tend to bring celebrities and notoriety? Atlanta's got to be pretty close to that in that playing field, right? So I thought this was not like great newsworthy, but I thought it was an interesting talking point. What did you get, Mark, Rick?
Yeah, I mean, it's from a West Coast perspective. it's definitely way more affordable in Atlanta. And I think that's what we need to remember is Atlanta seems expensive for those of us who have lived here for a long time and worked here for a long time. But compared to a lot of markets in the country, a lot of the major markets, especially the West Coast and even like Northwest, we're really affordable compared to them.
Yeah. I mean, if you just think like, what's a crazy expensive house in Atlanta? 5 million. What do you
Right.
get for 5 million in LA? A cookie cut. You know what I mean? Like that same 5 million is drastically different in Atlanta. And I think that's part of this, right?
Yeah, heavily weighted by your desire or ability to commute. The further out you go, the concentric circle creates more affordability.
Yeah.
So there's still affordability depending on your lifestyle and requirements for work travel.
And then this article in the Atlanta Business Chronicle is talking about new insight. I'm not really sure it's new insight, but Atlanta's housing shortage. Um, what it says is it says the metro area was short roughly 65,500 residences in 2022. And let's just start there. Like, why is this such a factor?
I mean, this speaks to some of the challenges we have with listing inventory, right? We've been short for a really long time. We were short before the pandemic, and we're further short now because demand increased so much during the pandemic.
And is it really a new construction problem? Is it a economic growth happened faster than housing? How would you explain this to a consumer? If you were in a conversation, uh, at a cocktail party or whatever, and you were talking about housing shortage in Atlanta, what's the 2, 3 sentence explanation?
Well, you already had a lack of housing from the Great Recession when people weren't building. Then you had the increase in demand brought on by COVID, and everyone's spending a lot of time in their homes. So demand went through the roof. And then on top of that, we have historically low interest rates keeping people in their homes. So those three factors compound to create the lack of inventory we have today.
Okay. And why would I care as a consumer?
Well, because the supply relative to demand affects price. So whether you're a homeowner or a prospective buyer, price is going to matter to you.
Yeah, and I think if I'm curious about investing in real estate from a wealth perspective, this lack of inventory, this lack of supply is almost an insurance policy on price appreciation for a long time.
Agreed.
And I would just for one warning flag is this is also a blanket statement that says metro area. What the heck's the metro area? So there's a massive, it could be 5 counties and it's hyper local. I think certain pockets probably have fewer opportunities for, residential purchases or rental, and some are blowing up. I mean, there's when I drive up I'm up here in Hall County on the lake, and there's 5 apartment complexes and 5 new construction communities right off 400 that I can see without making a left or a right turn. So there's definitely inventory coming. So the question is, if as an investor, what local market serves you best relative to the price and the rental income that you can generate because of that location and the product you own?
Yeah.
That's where the value as a realtor comes in, because your job is to distinguish better, good, better, and best.
Yeah, and I think like this comment here, it says nationally, the total number of housing units started last month was down nearly 20% from May of 2023. I think uh, the pandemic market coupled with 4% interest rates had the builders had their foot on the gas pedal for a period of time. I don't think they put their foot on the brakes, but I think they've kind of pulled their foot back on the gas pedal a little bit, which means that they're still building, right? Rick, you're talking about that. You're seeing these new construction, but I don't think they're full steam ahead like we kind of wish they might be.
Well, and I'd speculate the small to mid-sized builder is the one that's challenged because of lending and the cost of money, and they're probably more risk averse, where the national builders have deeper pockets and capacity and are still they're cranking pretty good in certain areas. Again, it's hyper local and circumstantial.
Got it. Okay. All right. Last article is a fun one. Um, so I don't think we can leave this conversation. Um, the AI effect on real estate, I still think as I look at our agent base, and we're pretty much give or take 1,600 agents in the Heart of Atlanta group, I would venture to say a chunk have not even like leaned into AI at this point, and probably over half, I would guess. And I think that's a mistake. One, two, um, it's coming so fast uh, that it's happening, and if you're not in tune with it, I don't want to say you're going to get left behind, but I think other people are going to accelerate so much faster because they're leaned into this. And what this article is talking about is um it's it it's just there's a lot of partnerships going on. So they're saying, like, for example, who will be the first major real estate company to announce a game-changing deal with OpenAI, which is Chat GPT, and they think like Zillow, homes.com, realtor.com are likely candidates to do that. Well, pull the curtain back on this. What does that really mean? It's a it's a conversion tool to lead generation. And I would tell you, like, I drive a Ford, and this is like a real world example. So, like, I drive a Ford, and if I take my car in for service, I'm texting with the Ford dealership. And the question is that AI on the other end, or is that a person on the other end? I think it's probably both, to be honest with you. Or I've told this story with where I was traveling to the airport in Austin, and somebody left their laptop in the back of the Uber, and there's no phone number on the Uber app. Like, you're texting with Uber, and I'm pretty certain it's AI on the other end of that. But nonetheless, the laptop made it back to the airport, all was good. But if you take this into the real estate space, let's say the consumer goes on homes.com and clicks for more information. In the past, they would have passed that to an agent. But I think in the future, you're going to insert some kind of AI in between the agent and the consumer clicking on the website from a lead generation standpoint. And it's becoming a better experience for the consumer. um you may you realize, like, Mark, if we did an ad on Facebook today, we could generate 100 registrations pretty easy. And but the typical agent calling through those 100 people is going to get extremely frustrated because 95 of them are going to be Donald Duck at Disney, or fake number, or hang up on you, or whatever. But there's still good leads inside that 100. You just got to get through them.
Right.
Well, what's happening with a lot of the big companies is they're putting AI on those 100 to go through the junk to tell you these are the four you need to call. And that's probably a really good thing to the agents that are leaned into that type experience, versus the agent that aren't participating, because calling through the 100, I'll just say it sucks, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, it's just not a great experience that keeps you from doing those lead generation activities. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the aggregators are in a better position to do that lead nurture than most agents are. So I think you're right. I think they're going to do that. And I think there's just a ton of AI out there that can make agents able to get more done quicker and more efficiently. And if you're not leaning into it, you're already behind.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I'm listening to the Steve Jobs Audible. It's pretty fascinating, his biography. And all technology in its initial phases is only available to the elite or to big companies with deep pockets and capacity. And at some point, it always disseminates into the consumer's hands. And the people that can manage and manipulate's not the best word, but benefit from it and utilize it probably win bigger because it's definitely a tool that creates efficiency. And to your point, anytime you can heat up a lead or create a relational energy that's more than just, hey, would you like a free something? You're 10 steps ahead. And again, so front end or back end, you have to decide how aggressive you want to be. Steve was saying the original computers, the only way you could have one as a consumer is if you bought the parts and put it together yourself. And so at some point, when someone hand delivers something and feeds you a cooked meal, you're going to pay a premium for it versus getting in there on the front end and figuring out how to manage it yourself.
Boom. Well, we are out of time, gentlemen. Happy Monday. It's the last full week without a holiday in the middle of it. We'll see you next week.
All right.